Oh, well, not a bad place to spend the day. I'm always happy when I can sit a place for maybe, I think about 2 hours now, and nobody's hopping around. I did hear a young man in the bush, but I haven't been back here for a week or so, and I think he's cleared out by now, or he's just not active today. I think and maybe he sleeps during the day. I don't know, but I went out on the deer path just on blind chance one day and just roaming around on all fours, and I heard this voice saying, hey man, is that you?" And I was like, no, it's just another deer. And then he just got quiet, and then I came here, and he seemed to be moving around a lot back there. I think maybe just establishing his territory. And so it's like, okay, that's cool. I won't go back out there and stuff, but it's cool. I mean, a young guy who's homeless, or has made this his home, and keeps to himself. I guess he gets visitors sometimes. Um, Judging by the condoms I see around from time to time, I have a very strong sense that a lot of these homeless guys have gone to homosexuality a little bit. I imagine it's kind of Brokeback Mountain. You get a little frustrated out there by yourself, but homosexuality is just such a strong, latent tendency in people now. We can say that, I think, much more safely than we could have said it 50 years ago, but we could have said it 50 years ago. It was still there, and we get a little bit of an education in the last 50 years of just what is around us that we do not see. And religion, the beginning, Adam and Eve, it's all about homosexuality. The entire book it's more than that as well, but you see what homosexuality is when you see that the Bible is all about homosexuality. So if you were to say that to homosexuals, they wouldn't necessarily go, "Oh yeah, that's amazing. The whole Bible is really about our way of life," and but they would sense like, "Oh, that means our way of life clearly is deceptive, isn't it? There's something very deceptive about homosexuality." Now, does that mean there's something deceptive about all homosexuals? Well, I think, in a strange sort of way, that the homosexuality of the Bible is spread so much that the answer is no, because everyone has been homosexualized. The idea of holding a homosexual to account for an unnecessary strain upon the sexual systems of our species is ridiculous to me. I would never hold any homosexual accountable for that. I might hold a club full of them accountable with an appropriately placed incendiary device, but that was a test. That kind of thing is not accepted on YouTube or anywhere, actually. Come to think of it, no. I shouldn't have said that. I apologize, but nobody deserves incendiary devices. And the blowing up of clubs and things like that, real or imagined, true or imagined, it tells you again. I mean, homosexuality makes people violent as much as it makes them horny for other men. It may make some people more violent. It may make some people more repressed. It may be that some people enjoy it, just like other people hate, enjoy, or misuse lots of other powerful things. To be fair to everyone. So my interest in what homosexuality is what homosexuality is in the Bible. And here we see a sex magic, basically. And magic, and then sex magic, and then homosexual magic. These things, they seem to have a very big trunk that when you look at it as sort of transsexual magic, or Jewish magic even, seems to just go on forever. You've sort of found the main trunk. It is the most deeply penetrated type of hex, that of the sort of man-woman. The man who has babies, the woman who has a barren womb. The tomb of man. And everything else that is made out of that is breathed life into, as a sarcophagus is basically cursed in many geometrical and flesh and blood and animated and enthralling and powerful ways in the minds of men. This cockeyed nature. And so I'm talking about something that, properly speaking, doesn't even have a name in our language. It's like an evil that People are going to be calling it's the homosexuals, it's the Jews, it's this, it's that, it's the evil, it's the aliens, it's this, it's the crazies, it's me. They're not going to have a handle on it for a long time. I can see that. I mean, it's an easy prediction. People are not going to have a handle on this type of evil, this evil that kind of lives on and above everything, yet in a sense trapped, gives the energy of something that's extremely trapped, and wants you to feel that you're trapped, is in a state of constant unrest, and wants you to be in that agitated state all of the time, no matter who you are, whether you hide it this way or that, or find ample enjoyment in the pursuit of various blood sport, essentially. And here we come back to the idea of blood as the current of your mind. And then all of my understanding then comes from just listening to how other people's minds work, and that's where I fill in a lot of my gaps. So in a sense, my sense of knowledge is filled in with listening to people, the words, what people have said to me, how people treat me, how they behave, studying what they say, what they do, what other people around them think about what they say, and what the whole experience is telling me about what I'm seeing. And then seeing how this is very compatible with how I describe the Bible. A kind of subspeciation has been grafted into the mind of man. And so when we're dealing with man, we're dealing with, in a sense, two entirely different entities. The natural intelligence that keeps people going and has some right to demand its heritage exists in all that is good and strong and true, in every beautiful power and creature of this planet, and all of her fair skies, and all of her reports and contractions and histories and intelligence and the like. The psyche whose nectar can be conceived as a child, who is then in turn, or thus in turn, doted upon by the celestial energies emanated by various creatures, who are, in a sense, tutors, teachers, chiefs, and great leaders of the child and of all the Son of Man. And this guidance is easily taken upon by a mother and father, but is quite often abdicated through various occult rituals. Just like marriage is the abdication of love. And your parents form labor contracts when they get married that take them away from you in militarized culture, and you will experience that very differently depending on socioeconomic bracket, race, gender, sex, and all that type of stuff. Just as much as you would experience differently between now and the 19th century. There's some people that, compared to you, probably live in the 18th century still. There are some people who, compared to you, maybe live in the 23rd century, that they're having so much easier time of living on this planet. The unfortunate thing is we don't get to try different ways of living in one lifetime. You can only live the way you do. Oops. Let me just start another joint. I already have one here. So those are my thoughts on that. So there is a fundamental, if I may use the word existential or ontological, or in the essence of being, in the nature of our being, prior to any great capacity we may have choose to exert as to making any meaning out of our existence. And this is so covering the definition of ontological and existential, since I use both of those terms. We have work to do when we're born. We have work to do now. That has to be efficient enough that we can do it 24 hours a day, as much as our immune system is functioning 24 hours a day. We want to hand off to our immune system, pick up from our immune system, and we do this through making gates. We make meetings with our immune system. Meetings with the God of our body, essentially, the creatrix of our body. And you could call these meetings with the earth. You can call them meetings with yourself. You could call it places to take all your pain and grief. You could call it places where you feel safe enough at times, using all of your instincts, finding what is to be made and harvested from the making of the meaning of your life. inasmuch as you were ever made of flesh and blood in your mother's womb and in the waters thereof, and of the stars. And the very instincts you use to find those places, which will mean to find safety, which is what the immune system is always concerned with as well, long-term safety. Using words for systems, and even threats to that safety, which you will also find in your journey, will help your mind conduct and execute these activities for itself in a way that you were never taught. And culture really is actively involved in inhibiting, right, for a culture that wants to allow everyone to have no inhibitions at the drop of a hat in this situation and that, and certainly not about aggression and blind obedience. And tugging on the teat of surrogate mother and father energies, concepts, and egregors without really taking the time that they know is probably necessary to ascertain what happened with their relationship with their first mother and father, with their birth mother and father. What kind of road does it take you down when you find evil in your own family? Precisely because, not because of the wonders of being a child, but because when you are dwarfed and you are made deeply sensible by these people that you are dwarfed in weight and psychological power by a mother or father or guardian, then everything is distorted in the mind very early on. There's your mind control. Thanks everyone, doing a good job. Dogs are treated better than people's children. Because dogs should be treated like dogs. I was showing a local witch through her dog something about boundaries. Very subtle. She would never pick up on it consciously. And I noticed that my way of being is able to communicate with people on a very subconscious level because I live in the subconscious. If I'm willing to endure, and I mentioned evils throughout this video, I have a sense that no evil is ever as bad as we think it is, but we should never risk underestimating it either. So even if you think you risk exaggerating evil in your own studies, whoever I'm talking to, the risk is a rightful one to consider. That's a reasonable thing, just like you consider, am I sane, when you're thinking about alien beings or something, and which you should think. But, we are so alien to our own planet, and yet some people spend more time thinking about aliens than they do about our relationship to our planet. I mean, it's just, the irony is just absolutely biblical. Those of us who work in this field, the field of earth-based sanity, basically, who occupy a profession that there isn't even a name for. I'm kind of part apothecary, part druid, part Satanist, part storyteller, part harvester of the wisdom of the earth, as much as someone would pick any kind of fruit. Except this fruit is so much important to pick, and you only want certain kinds of people picking this fruit off the tree of their family tree. And a lot of people haven't been picking that fruit for a long time because their trees are just very scary places and no one expects to find any fruit there. Even in their own minds, they don't want to find fruit in what is awful and psychopathic about their family, and how pathetic and disgusting this world has become when you look at it, at least in that layer, that scuzzy layer. And maybe you say, hey man, you live in that scuzzy layer, you talk about that scuzzy layer, how dare you say it's just a tiny layer? You live in that layer. It's like, absolutely, I probably do live in that layer every day. And all the more reason why I'm interested in planting my feet and finding places where I can use my mind where, hey, maybe I could convince you and myself that I'm not totally just vomiting out and reconstituting something from the scuzzy layer of this planet. I want to call that like the noosphere, because it's like a noose. It's the mold sphere. It's the bacterial, soulful, Yahweh-like overlord sphere that has descended and sent its pods down into our entire society.